So you want to get into investing but don't know exactly where to begin or which stocks to choose? Well, a good place to start is by looking into ETFs. What are ETFs? Well, they stand for exchange traded funds, and basically they are a basket of stocks. So instead of just investing one or two stocks here and there and picking a few sectors, you'll be investing in hundreds of stocks at once, thus reducing your risks, especially in today's market. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you my top 5 dividend ETFs that are all comprised of great dividend stocks, give decent dividend yields, and also are really inexpensive. So if you're ready, let's jump in. First ETF on our list is Vanguard High Dividend Yield ETF, ticker symbol VYM. And as the name describes, VYM gives you exposure to high dividend yield stocks by tracking the FTSE High Dividend Yield Index. This ETF has 446 holdings and they are trading over 2 million shares per day. Over the last year, VYM has fallen 5.7%, and within this last month, they have grown 5.6%. That'll bring them to a current share price of $102.64. VYM is trading just below their midpoint with a low of $94 and a high of $115. Right in here, we have AUM, which stands for Assets Under Managed, and this is basically the total market value of all the investments that is held within VYM. So they have over $53 billion in assets. And up here we have the expense ratio of 0.06%. This is how much you are paying for VYM, and for every $10,000 you are paying $6. So it's very inexpensive compared to other ETFs. One last thing is that this ETF pays you dividends quarterly. So VYM has a dividend yield of 3.17%. They will give you an annual payout of $3.22. Their growth rate for the last 5 years is 5.81%, and they have been steadily growing that dividend consistently for the last 11 years. Scrolling up here, we can see that Seeking Alpha gives VYM a grade of A for their dividend grade, and for their expense ratio, Seeking Alpha gives them an A+. Looking a bit deeper into their holdings, just going over the top 3 sectors, we have finances, which is about 20% of the entire ETF. We have healthcare, which is about 16.5%, and we have consumer defensive, which is about 14%. Going on here, we'll look at the top holdings and just go over the top view. We have Johnson & Johnson, which going over here is about 3.5% of the entire ETF. We have ExxonMobil, which is about 3%, and we have JP Morgan, which is about 2.5%. So all these top 10 make up about 23% of the entire ETF. And as I mentioned before, they have 446 holdings within the ETF. Jump over to TradingView to look at some of the chart analytics. And we're looking at a daily chart right here. So each of these candlesticks are 1 day. Right in here, we can see that we are in a positive trend here. So starting around October 14th, we started moving upwards and broke through our 25-day moving average, which is this purple line. And right now, it looks like we're just about to break through our 50-day moving average and moving towards our 100-day moving average. So that is the yellow line and green line respectively. Now, as far as some trends, looking back here, where we are currently was about a support level right here. So you can see back at the end of June, it broke through this $100 and kind of fell back down. And then early July, it kind of stayed around that level until it finally broke out towards the end of July with enough positive trend, as you can see right here, and it broke through its 25-day moving average and the 50-day moving average and continued moving forward. So going off that history, if we stay in this positive trend, very well could break through that 100-day and continue moving up to our 200-day moving average, which is this white line right here. And right now it looks very good for VYM, moving in that positive direction. Next on our list is Schwab Dividend Equity ETF, ticker symbol SCHD. And this ETF will give you exposure to over 100 high dividend yield stocks that have a record of consistently paying their dividends. And it tracks the Dow Jones Dividend 100 Index. Also, they trade about 3 million shares per day. For the past year, Schwab has fallen 8.75%, and just within this last month, they have grown 5%, bringing them to a current share price of $71.35. They're trading below their midpoint with a low of $66 and a high of $82. Their assets under managed is $35 billion, and they have a expense ratio of 0.06. And just like VYM, they also pay their dividends quarterly. Now, SCHD has a dividend yield of 3.53%, and they'll give you an annual payout of $2.45. And for the last 5 years, they have grown at a rate of 12.10% and have consistently grown that dividend for the last 9 years. Seeking Alpha gives SCHD a dividend grade of A+, and also gives them an A+ for their dividend ratio. Top three sectors in this ETF is financials with just above 20.5%, industrial just above 16%, and technology just above 15.5%. Scrolling on here for the top 3, we have Merck & Company with 4.3%, we have Pfizer with 4.12%, and we have Pepsi with 4.09%. And these top 10 make up about 40% of the entire ETF. And as I mentioned, they have over 100, so currently 104 holdings. Just like VYM, they also are in a positive trend here. So they have broken through their 25-day moving average and are hitting their 50-day moving average. So going back here, just like VYM, again, they basically have that $70 marker as a support. And with enough momentum, they'll be able to break through here. So very likely that if this trend stays positive, they'll be able to break through that 50-day and move into their 100-day. So looking great for VYM at this time. Next on the list is iShares Core High Dividend ETF, ticker symbol HDV, and they give you exposure to 75 high quality and high dividend paying stocks by tracking the Morningstar High Dividend Yield Focus Index. Also, they trade about 1.7 million shares per day. From the start of the year, HDV has grown 1.5%, and just within this last month, they have grown 6.6%, bringing them to a current share value of $99.51. So they are still trading below their midpoint with a low of $91 and a high of $110. They have $11 billion in assets, and their expense ratio is 0.08%, so the most expensive one so far today. And they also pay their dividends quarterly. So HDV has a dividend yield of 3.69%, which will give you an annual payout of $3.62. For the last 5 years, they have grown their dividend at a rate of 5.07% and have successfully been growing that dividend for the last 0 years. Seeking Alpha gives HDV a dividend grade of B and an expense ratio grade of A. Looking at the holdings, we have over 25% in energy, 21% in healthcare, and 12% in technology. So scroll down here, looking at the top few, we have ExxonMobil with about 9% of the entire ETF. We have Chevron with 6.8%, and we have Verizon with 6.53%. So those are some of the top 3. And these top 10 make up about 53% of the entire ETF. And currently the number of holdings is 81. So looking at HDV's chart, we can see just like the other two, they are in a positive trend here. So they are right at its 50-day moving average. So earlier this month, they did break through the 25-day moving average. And looking right back here, we can see that this is just about a resistance point for them. So if they can break through just like they did back in late July, they'll be able to break through their 50-day moving average and make it up to their 100-day moving average. So just like the other two, looking very good for HDV. Next on our list is Spider S&P Dividend ETF, ticker symbol SDY. This gives you exposure to over 100 stocks that have consistently been growing their dividend year over year by tracking the S&P High Dividend Yield Aristocrats Index. Also, they trade about 600 million shares per day. Within this last year, SDY has fallen 4.8%, and within this last month, they have grown 2.6%, bringing them to a current share price of $118.04. They are trading below their midpoint with a low of 110 and a high of 133. They have $20 billion in assets and have an expense ratio of 0.35%, meaning that you'll be paying $35 for every $10,000 that you're investing. And lastly, they also pay their dividend quarterly, just like the others. SDY has a dividend yield of 2.81%. That'll give you an annual payout of $3.27. For the last 5 years, they have grown their dividend at a rate of 7.31% and have consistently grown their dividend for the last 4 years. Seeking Alpha gives SDY a dividend grade of A and expense ratio grade of B-. Looking at their holdings, we have at the top industrial with 18.5%, finances with just above 16%, consumer defensive just about 15%. Scrolling here, looking at its top holdings, we have in first place Cardinal Health with 1.71%, Leggett & Platt with 1.67%, and IBM with 1.67% as well. So all these top 10 make up about 60% of the entire ETF and is comprised of 122 holdings. Over here looking at a chart, just like all those other ones we've looked at so far, it is an upward trend. This one seems that it broke through its 25-day moving average a bit sooner than the other ones. Regardless, we do have the same kind of support. So right now, the resistance part with all the other ones we looked at was kind of right in line with where the stock was trading at right now. However, looking at here, the resistance point is at $113, so we are below that, but still moving in the right direction. And we are coming close to our 50-day moving average. So we could see right here, it had a little bit of trouble getting through its 25-day moving average. So it kind of came back down and now moving back up. So if we keep this positive trend, we could come up here and maybe kind of hover around this 50-day moving average as we kind of did here on the 25, or pretty much break through the 50 and 100-day at the same time. Really good at HDV, and just kind of keep in mind that we could have a pullback right there, as you kind of saw once we broke through here. So do keep that in mind. Fifth ETF on our list is First Trust Morningstar Dividend Leaders Index ETF, ticker symbol FDL. FDL gives you exposure to the highest dividend consistently and stability by tracking the Morningstar Dividend Leaders Index. Also, they trade about 1.5 million shares per day. Within this last year, FDL has grown 3.54%, and within this last month, they have grown 6.22%, bringing them to a current value of $35.08. And within this last month, they have grown 6.72%. Bringing them to a current value of $35.08. They're trading just about their midpoint with a low of $32 and a high of $39. They have just above $3 billion in assets and have an expense ratio of 0.45. So it is the most expensive ETF we have today. And lastly, they are paying their dividends quarterly. FDL has a dividend yield of 3.89%, which will give you an annual payout of $1.35, steadily growing that dividend for the last 5 years at a rate of 7.62%, and have grown that dividend consistently for the last 0 years. Seeking Alpha gives FDL a dividend grade of B+, with expense ratio grade of D+, because it's fairly expensive, $45 for every $10,000 that you invest. Now looking at its holdings, it is comprised of 21% of energy stocks, just about 19% in finance stocks, and just about 12% in consumer defensive stocks. Going on here, we can look at the top, and we have ExxonMobil with 10%. Next we have Avi, which is about 8%, and Verizon with about 7.8%. So all these top 10 shown right here make up about 55% of the entire ETF. And this ETF has 101 holdings. Over here looking at the chart, just to stay in consistency with all the other ETFs we looked at today, FDL also has a positive trend. So it did just break through its 25-day moving average, and it looks like it bounced back after it broke through, and now it has started to rebound and it has hit its 50-day moving average. So going back here, we can see that around the $35 range was a resistance point for FDL, and it was just underneath their 200-day moving average. It just takes some momentum for it to break through its 25-day moving average and also its 200-day moving average, and it kind of bounced back there and finally had enough to create a gap and continue moving forward. So right here, just looking at history-wise, it very well could kind of go sideways on this 50-day moving average before having enough momentum to break through. I think it does have a very good position for FDL, continue moving onwards. And also one other thing to point out, we did have a gap right here, and generally gaps do fill. So we can see here that we definitely did fill and then dropped right back down. So just another little part to look at. Let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are about these 5 ETFs, and if you have any other favorite dividend ETFs. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor, so definitely do your own due diligence before investing in any of these ETFs I went over today. If you're looking for more dividend stocks, definitely check out my latest video right over here, and I'll catch you over there. Peace.